Hello and welcome to this podcast for Ponoko. I'm your host, Robin Mitchell, and on this show we love to talk to engineers to find out what they do in their respective fields, the challenges that they face, and, well, how we can ourselves avoid those challenges. So today we've got a really cool guest from a company called Muse Ovations. And without further ado, please introduce yourself to the audience, what you do, who you are, and what you like to do in your spare time.
Hi, my name is Vaughn Risher. I'm the founder and CEO of Muse Ovations. We make music electronic products, mixers, drum machines, synthesizers. Our first product that we intend still to come to market, it's very close, is Fader Later. Back in 2020, which is now, 5 years ago almost. I guess it is 5 years ago, probably.
Oh God, 2020 was 5 years ago.
It's crazy, right?
Oh, blimey.
It's nuts.
Time fast.
5 years ago, we made some acrylic cutouts and an enclosure for our very first prototype of Fader Later to show at NAMM. And we had really great results, and we made a great impression. And part of that has to do with how nice the quality of the parts were that we got from Ponoko. And back then, in 2020, I knew already that our next step would be going to metal enclosure. And at the time, Ponoko was about to roll out a whole new type of production, which was metal. And I spent time talking with Derek, the CEO of Ponoko, about being a first use case for this new manufacturing type, and we were really excited. Little did either of us know that the pandemic was literally crashing down around our heads, and so maybe the third or fourth time that I talked to Derek on the phone, he was like, "We're never going to get these parts out of China." And so the production had to be put on pause, basically. And so it was a wild roller coaster ride. I mean, everyone who's watching this podcast, I'm sure, knows how crazy things were in 2020, but everyone's experience is different. And it took us an enormous amount of time to adjust to the supply chain challenges and differences that came from the pandemic. And essentially, our company grew during that moment, from being an emergency, trying to get that first prototype out the door till we could show it at NAMM, to a market-ready product. And it took, a pretty big understanding of how the construction of components works, where they come from, the kinds of options that you have for making enclosures, who makes the enclosures, what parts of the world. I mean, like, I had to learn a whole lot really fast, and, I still am learning now, but I'm definitely more experienced than I was in 2020. So that's just this tiny little, description, but you had other questions about me, I think.
Yes, it was going to ask you what you like to do in your free time.
Okay, so what do I like to do in my free time? Well, I do a lot of different things. It's funny you ask free time, you say free time. I don't really feel like I have free time.
I was about to say, I think anyone who runs a business, including myself, the concept of free time is completely alien. It does not exist.
But
it's every moment is working.
It's true. But at the same time, I mean, one of the nice things about running your own company is that you make a decision about what you do with your time. So when we think of an employer, we think of a person who chooses how our time is spent, and then we get to choose what to do when the employer doesn't control that time. But when you run your own company, you're literally the person who's deciding what your free time is or what your free time isn't. And so when you ask what I do in my free time, really the question is, what do I like to do with my time? And so a lot of things that I like to do with my time have directly to do with my company. So I'm a lot of times researching other products from other companies. I'm testing other products from other companies. I'm also learning about new technologies. I'm learning about new aspects of design, physics, electronics, things that that directly relate to products that I'm working on that are, farther down the pike from what we're doing now. But I also do crazy things like I buy vintage audio gear. I mean, the I think part of the magic of making new technology is learning about what people have done in the past and trying to figure out why things aren't being made that way anymore, or basically discovering things that people have sort of thrown away, but might end up having valuable ideas in them that can be mined for like ideation. Given a goal of making innovative products. A lot of times innovation comes from an understanding of the building blocks that led us to where we are. It's not just taking.
You're not reinventing the wheel every single
No,
time. It's not a blank slate
absolutely
every time.
not.
You're building it on top of other things.
Yeah, absolutely not. I mean, there are countless. There's countless products that have been made over time. I mean, all you have to do is go to the local Goodwill, or I don't know what part of the world you might be listening to this in, but thrift store, and walking down the aisle of their home goods or their audio gear, if they have a section for audio gear, and seeing what kinds of things people have essentially decided are not necessary anymore. And you pick up one of those 20, 30, 40-year-old pieces of technology and look at it, and you're like, what the hell is this? You just don't know, because the context has changed.
It's really funny you mention old technology, because I'm looking around my workshop, because this is actually an electronics workshop. You've got 2 3D printers, you can see
Awesome.
the back, but I can see over there, I've got a bunch of machines from the 1980s. I've got a ZX Spectrum, for example, which was 1982.
Nice.
So yeah, exactly. And I've actually got an 8-step tone sequencer kit over there, which is a bunch of LEDs with the little tones that also make a little sound with each different step sequence, like a drum machine, So
Yeah.
it's really funny. It's really funny you mention that, and I'm just sort of looking around my space and seeing all these old things. But I do want to pick up on something that was quite interesting. You mentioned about 3 minutes ago, because when we had some chats over emails, we wanted to talk a bit about things like patents and or patterns, depending on how you pronounce it, and all this stuff. But there's one thing I want to talk about first, and you said it's about free time. And like I said, the idea of this podcast is to try and give other engineers insights into how you run businesses, the challenges that you face, and all this kind of stuff. And I think you picked up on something that I personally feel doesn't really get discussed a lot, which is, what do you do with your free time? What is free time? What is this work-life balance situation? How does a business owner or startup, how does a CEO manage their time correctly? Because as you clearly know, and I know, it's if you're not careful, you can let your work completely absorb you. It can dominate your life completely, take over everything, and then you can see things falling apart around you if you're not careful. So how do you sort of approach that sort of work-life balance?
Well, I think that the best way to think of it is that your life is your life, and you have to understand that no matter what you pretend, when you're working, you are living your life. So in a way, you have no choice but to create a balance. But that balance is for an entrepreneur, a lot of times that balance is one that is either a successfully coordinated, enjoyable time, or it is a badly organized ball of stress, which careens out of control. Sometimes it is literally your choice on how to see it, which changes that balance. Like, how am I going to interpret what I'm doing? Is what I'm doing work, or is what I'm doing fun? Is what I'm doing necessary to benefit my company, or is what I'm doing actually going to benefit my relationship with my wife, the time I can spend with our dogs, making our house, pleasant enough to live in, all of those things. Like they are organization away from success or failure. So I guess that's probably the most important thing is to think of is organization of your time and how you choose to use it, relating to making sure you're enjoying yourself too. It's like you can't just put your head down and crank away on something that you hate for 24 hours a day. You have to spend some portion of that time doing something that you enjoy in order to make sure that you keep going.
How would you know if you are spending too much time working? What would be like the sign for you to say, actually, I've got to stop?
I have some pretty easy ways. One of them is if my wife is coming to me and saying, hey, I need you to be here, with me. We got to do something. That's one.
Stop working.
Oh yeah, and that's one way. That's one way. But that's sort of a cop out of an answer, because it's like if I can rely on external.
You're pushing the responsibility onto her.
Yeah, and that's not fair to her. But it's also an illusion. If you don't have, like, if we're in control of how we spend our time, we are also in control of how, when we stop working, we're also in control of how stressed we get to an extent. I mean, yes, there are deadlines imposed by external sources, like, if you know that your supplier is going to take a certain amount of time to get something completed, that you have to make sure you hit that deadline so that you can get it on this side. And that is like a constant struggle, because sometimes, you've got to think, months in advance, and a day today, when it's only a day now, and it's months in the future that the end result matters. That day today matters to get that work finished by that deadline. But like, even in those circumstances, even in those like narrow windows, you still have to say, okay, I'm going to go and I'm going to play with my dog. And even if it's only 10 minutes or 20 minutes, it makes so much difference in your overall, like, mental state, that, sometimes the biggest stresses that are consuming your life can sort of melt away if you take that small break to do something that's important to you, important to your family, important to your well-being. And then that small break, makes the next 5 hours of work, super simple compared to, trudging along, which you don't want to trudge along. Like,
No.
Why am I an entrepreneur? Well, there's a lot of reasons. And, some of them have to do with the fact that I want to make my inventions real. But another one is I don't want to have a boss. And I want to create my own schedule. I want to make my own time. And that's really important, because then I can take that 10 minutes and walk the dog. It's really important. but you
and
go ahead.
that does seem to be a growing trend, which I've seen amongst people starting their own businesses, including myself, which is the fact that we don't particularly want a boss who we have to answer to, when they're monitoring your time, and all you want to do is take some break at some point because it's more convenient for you. But apparently that's wrong, and you can't do that. And I am seeing that trend.
Yeah, it's absolutely it's a big part of why even after the pandemic ended, people still want to work from home.
Yeah.
It's because even if they're not an entrepreneur, when you're working from home, you at least have some more control over your time and your life. And so, yeah, absolutely. One other thing I wanted to mention, and this is, I think, a really important aspect of creating new products, is inventing. And you brought patents, which I brought up in my emails back and forth with you. But all of that actually comes from, ideas and work when it comes to making products. Work actually a lot of times happens inside your head. Whether you're just organizing your life, or if you're trying to come up with a new product, or even if you're not even trying to come up with a new product, but your brain is already like in that direction, you want to do it, you are going to have a lot of this happening in your head. Your work is going to happen in your head. And if your work is happening in your head, some of it, then you need to give your head some space. And I say, that's a weird phrase. I mean,
that makes, that actually that does make sense. Like you say, people think that work is sitting on a chair, writing down something or typing something on a computer. But even when you're in the shower, your brain's still going to be ticking over, thinking of the problems.
Yeah, and you could be walking the dog, you could be taking a nap, you could be like twiddling your thumbs, you could be meditating. I mean, I don't really meditate. I feel guilty not meditating, but I don't really meditate. You could be exercising. You could be playing Vampire Survivor or something. You could be doing something totally useless. But the way I see it is sometimes the less of your conscious thought is required for something, the more conscious thought is in reserve for thinking about things and making sure that you have that room. It's like if you're doing a rowing machine, for example, like you're not thinking about like moving your body. You're not thinking. You're just doing it. And when you're doing it, you can think about something else. I mean, people in gyms, they can have TVs in the background or whatever. They can watch a show in the background. You could do that, or you could be literally working in your brain. Like I have, there's so many times that I've been doing something completely innocuous, unrelated, and I'm having an idea. Then and if you're trying to come up with new products, every idea potentially is gold, and you want to make sure that you pay attention to those. I mean, when I say pay attention, that implies that now you have to sit down at a table. But
you're supposed to get away from this, and you're already trying to work again.
Yeah, but having a notebook or a voice memo, handy. I mean, it's a bit of work to have your phone in your pocket or to pull out a notebook with a pencil or pen, but I mean, a walk with the dog.
I'll be completely honest. Some of my best ideas and some of the best times when I've solved problems when I've been sitting on the toilet. I'll be completely honest.
Yeah. I mean,
it's your brain will just click.
We put a lot of time in there in the toilet. I mean, the humans, we can't avoid it, and you're gonna think of stuff. And when you think of something and it's in a weird situation, I mean, like, what if you're on top of the Eiffel Tower? I mean, I haven't been to Paris yet, but when I go to Paris, I'm going to want to go to the top of the Eiffel Tower. So like I'm at the top of the Eiffel Tower and it's the most beautiful scene, the city and the clouds and, your loved one, and everything. It's perfect. But your brain is it's still going.
Ooh, if I use that different capacitor, it's going to work better.
Yeah. So might as well just take a minute or 30 seconds or something and note it, jot it down. I mean, I know that there are a million challenges in life, and we have to rise to those challenges. But there are some smaller challenges, like carrying a notebook is a pretty small challenge to rise to, and take.
It's a discipline, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It is a discipline. I mean, but actually, that brings up a whole other point, other interesting. I guess one of those truths of life that I believe in, which is that discipline is a lot easier to follow when you have some kind of reward for that discipline. And when you have some motivation that that gives your body that go juice, which I don't have a deep understanding of how this works, but I did read that one of the reasons why mathematicians do what they do and get so excited and keep on moving and keep learning about new formulas, and they're literally standing at a whiteboard all the time, is because every time they come up with a new answer to a problem, they get a little injection from their brain of positive endorphins and other chemicals that get them happy. Inventing things, like some of the best moments in my life have been when I invented something. I'm alone. It's at night. No one's awake. Like I'm not talking to anybody. I'm not doing anything with anybody. No one would know. But I feel amazing, and it's because I've come up with something new, and it's a real reward.
And now on that topic of coming up with something new, that brings us to the topic of patents.
Right.
Because when you sit there and you develop something and it's brand new and it's unique and you're the first one to come up with it, I can imagine if someone else took that design, it would be utterly devastating, which is where
it is. Come in. Intellectual property is, to an extent, it's what makes the world go round. I mean, that's a gross oversimplification. So forgive me, everyone who's listening, for saying, "Oh, you're full of it." Well, I am to an extent, but I'm not, because really ideas are what make a product appear, and protecting your intellectual property is a lot of times what's necessary to get it finished.
Well, put it this way: think of all the time and think of all the things that you've probably developed and invented that don't take off, that don't make any money. You need to account for all of that lost time with something that finally does. And so that's why I've always personally supported patents to make sure that people and engineers like yourself, you can profit from what you've developed, because then it allows you to do the next thing afterwards.
That's right.
But as a business owner and as somebody who's developed a product, what would you say is the biggest challenge that people tend to face when applying for things like patents?
Okay, so the process is different all over the world. So I've recently acquired patents for our new product, Fader Later, in multiple countries. But the process beyond the initial process is a lot of times more of a legal one than it is one that directly involves my my hard work in putting together diagrams and stuff like that. Because once a country like the U.S. goes through the rigors of testing the ideas and checking them based on prior art and stuff, other countries will then more likely refer to that work. And so it's easier to get a patent in another country when you've gotten it in your home country.
And so you're implying that the US is almost like the gold standard for a patent. And so
wow,
that way, once you've got it, others will look at that and go, right, that's probably valid. So we'll
there are some exceptions. The EU is more strict than most other countries that I found other than the US. But I think that what I was getting at is that I can give the most perspective on getting a US patent than I can get about, even though I've gotten patents that follow my US patent in other countries, the most information I can give you is about the USPTO process of attaining a patent. So I just wanted to make sure that that's understood, so that nobody is asking like, well, why is it like this? Well, if you're in a different country, I can't answer that question necessarily. But I can say for the US patent process, the very first thing that you need to do is get a provisional patent. And a provisional patent is a lot easier to acquire because it's really just a placeholder until the full patent is either granted or denied. And if it's granted, then it's granted retroactively from the moment that you file the provisional patent. And if it's denied, then, it didn't ever exist. But until it's denied or granted, you have this specter of patent that hangs essentially in the air until that process is completed. But getting a provisional patent does cost something. It's not free. The fee is, I think, the last time I checked, it was, I think, $150. But it might have changed since then. But you get your provisional patent by constructing an argument that you have something that is worth making claims on. So you still have to write it, and you still have to make the claims. But when they receive that, the likelihood that they don't grant your provisional patent is almost nothing, because the provisional patent just gives you an extra year to work on your full patent paperwork. Now,
and I'm guessing that during that period, that's where you can put like the whole patent pending kind of thing on your product.
Yes. So that's what patent pending means. If you ever see a product that says patent pending, it means that they're trying to finish the patent process. They have, and they can be patent pending starting with the provisional being granted and ending when it's either granted or not. And I think it's fascinating. Like just as an aside, going back to talking about vintage electronics, like I was, I can't remember what it was, but I was looking at this old turntable, and I was like moving a part, and I noticed there was a patent pending on it, and it's like from 1950.
The ZX Spectrum I've got from 1982, that's got patent pending on the back as well.
Yeah. Well, it's because you can't wait for the government to finish their process to take your device to market. I mean, I am in a situation where I got my patent before my product goes to market, and I'm proud of it, and I'm glad to have done it, but it took a lot longer to get it to market. But I think a lot of times it's about how much money you have, your company funding, that helps get something to market. And if you have enough money, things are easier. Their wheels are greased. And I don't mean.
And so it sounds like to me one of the bigger challenges is not just the legal side of things, but also the fact that you need the money behind it to get the patent in the first place.
And I mean, and actually going back to patents, the provisional patent is essentially free. If you take when I say free, I'm sorry, it's $150, right? Or
it sounds like what you're going to say is that the cost of that, by comparison to the final patent, is a lot lower.
Yes, and when I say it's essentially free, what I mean is you don't necessarily need help from a lawyer to get a provisional patent. But if you want to get your full patent granted, the likelihood is you'll want help from a lawyer, because even if you, as an entrepreneur, if you write your full patent and you make your claims, you get your you have your diagrams in order, you make sure that you've covered as many bases as you can think of to explain it in a way that the patent attorney, or excuse me, the examiner, the patent examiner has may not have any knowledge of your industry. Make sure they can understand it. Even after all that is completed, you still have to actually go through the process of them checking it, getting back to you and rejecting or allowing, and then making an argument. And I have to tell you that the way that my patent attorney approached the argument, the period of time between them rejecting all 16 of our initial claims and accepting all 16 claims it wasn't a court case, but it was like a court case. His document that he sent to the examiners to argue for accepting these claims was, I mean, I felt reading it, I felt like I was in the courtroom with Matlock or somebody, you know, like Kojak. Kojak's not an attorney, but, you know, some super attorney. I read this and I was thinking to myself, man, I'm really glad I have him. Yeah. And I, you know, it's expensive because, you know, lawyers charge you, and patent attorneys are not just lawyers. I know I'm not knocking people who are, quote, just lawyers, but patent attorneys have to have a fundamental understanding of the world of science. And
they almost need to be an engineer themselves.
Well, and when you say almost, my patent attorney was an engineer. He was a mechanical engineer for like 30 years. And he decided to retire from being a mechanical engineer. And his retirement was becoming a lawyer and being a patent attorney. So,
it kind of makes sense, because I would imagine that a mechanical engineer would have gone through that themselves a lot of times.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and my product doesn't really have much of mechanical, like the patent at least doesn't have much mechanical engineering.
It's still an engineering product. So it's got, the whole process doesn't really change.
Yeah, so you know, somebody like me out there listening to this podcast, I know you're smart, and I know you have ideas, and I know you have, you know, the fortitude and the persistence to get this finished. I know that. But I highly encourage you that when you get close to the point where you want to submit that full patent, consider at least hiring an attorney, because the initial submission is, you know, can be painless, because I mean you put your hard-earned time and energy into it and your thought, and you created this document, which is potentially very thorough, and you send it to them, but you don't have an infinite amount of chances after that. Once you've sent it to the USPTO, you only have 3 chances to prove your case before they either say yes or no. Now, after that 3rd chance, you can appeal it. But appealing a patent is also a challenging process, and at that point, you better have a lawyer, because I am not. I'm not even. I have no experience with it, because I can give you. So let me back up and give you a taste of what I went through. That way, you can have like firsthand perspective on, or secondhand technically, because I'm telling you, but like at least you can have a better idea of what it is that you'd be going through. So I'm lucky enough that my patent attorney is my first cousin once removed, okay, which I know it's a handful of people are probably going to go to Google right now and type in first cousin once removed to figure out what the hell that is. But he's essentially my dad's first cousin. My dad is no longer with us, but the ties bind, the family ties bind. So my first cousin, once removed, said that he would help me get my provisional patent for free. Now, what I told you before is that it's essentially free because you can do it yourself. And I know that's true because I helped my my partner in Muse Ovations, Joel Renke. I helped him apply for his first patent for the concepts and technology behind Beat Warp, which is another product that we're bringing to market. He didn't hire a lawyer or get a lawyer for the provisional patent. Okay, so I'm just giving you that perspective. Anyway, but my first cousin, once removed, helped me get my provisional patent for free. Now, I'm happy about that partly because what he did during that period of time is he gave me a crash course in what I needed to have done in order to make sure that I could get a patent. And that is super important because, as an entrepreneur, as an intellectual property holder, as somebody who is working on getting a product to market, and you want to get a patent for your idea, what you need to do is you need to set, there's two, and I know it sounds small, there's two important aspects to make sure that your idea is patentable. The first one, and it's the most commonly understood one, is uniqueness. Uniqueness is the thing everyone thinks of when they think of patents. They think of this is something that's never been made, and no one's thought of it, so it's unique. But the second part is called non-obviousness. And non-obviousness is the much harder standard because non-obviousness means that if you take the components that your patent is made of and you set them on a table, and you have somebody who doesn't know you, doesn't know anything about what you're doing, comes in, but they do have experience in that industry, can they look at what's on that table and can they make your device without even talking to them about it? Just by seeing those components, just by taking in them all in the same proximity with each other, can they make them? Well, I'll tell you right now, there are a number of inventions that I've got that I'm dead sure can't be patented because I know that once somebody sees them together on a table, that they're going to be able to build it. And, those are still really awesome, valuable inventions. Believe me, they are not to be trifled with. Unless
that's completely obvious to you because you are the designer and you're like, oh, that makes sense to me.
Sure, and that's actually,
goes, oh, I don't know what's going on.
That's a good point. Now, and that brings me back to the patent process. So what I was telling you before about how once you go to the USPTO with your final patent that you've submitted, and they get back to you after a certain amount of time. Because we submitted this January 1st, 2021, it took forever for them to get back to us because everything was backed up because of the pandemic. It took them until 2023 to respond.
Oh, goodness.
Yes. Normally, according to my lawyer, it takes 11 months for the first response. So, that was an extremely long time. But once they get back to you and they tell you, no, they are making a lot of times arguments to non-obviousness. They're saying this is obvious, and here's why it's obvious. Here's the prior art. Prior art, by the way, is a previous patent somewhere. It could be anywhere in the world. It's not just you. Even if you're going through the U.S. patent process, they still use prior art from other countries. And there's a good reason for that, and I'll get back to that in a second. But for the examiner to come back and say, this is obvious, well, the biggest argument that my lawyer used is exactly what you said.
Build it.
Which is that I'm the one who came up with it, so it's obvious to me, but it's not obvious to anyone else. And here's why.
Yeah.
And here is why. Because the examiner can't use the fact that I submitted this patent as evidence that it's not patentable. That is the most specious and most, honestly, probably most difficult thing to argue. Even though it's the most ridiculous thing for an examiner to use evidence that you submitted the patent, that it's obvious, I am betting you that they'll use that argument a lot. And so as a potential patent holder, somebody getting granted, remember that. So when you get to that point with the patent office and they tell you that something is obvious, make sure that argument can, if it needs to be used, you can use it. Make sure you tell. And more importantly, make sure that they're not just using the fact that you submitted the patent in the first place as the basis of that argument. And it's hilarious that, they're not going to say it like it. When you get a response from the USPTO, you get a pretty thick book of rationale. They not only do they send you the prior art of all the patents that they're referring to, but they also give you written rationale for their decisions. And in that written rationale, they didn't ever say, "Oh, because you came up with this, it's obvious."
They will try and it will show that that's what they're thinking, but they're not going to say it.
No, they won't say it, but that doesn't mean that you can't dispute it based on that argument. And there are cases like I don't have it in front of me, and I don't remember all the details because it was so well written and so concise and so legally binding and so legally strong that but my attorney, when he wrote this argument in counter to their denials, he cited several cases that actually went to the meat of this exact issue. So there is legal precedence for a patent, a potential patent holder, to get them to say, "Hey, look, we made a mistake. Sorry, here you go." And it's because of those legal precedent. We have, as potential product releasers, as potential patent holders, as entrepreneurs, we have an enormous amount of weight on our shoulders. We really do. Like, there's so many things we have to do. From like figuring out what goes in your product, like the amount of, like, especially electronics. And speaking to you, Robin, as an electrical engineer, like, that, our product has 180, actually, it has more now, but our first potential market version of Fader Later had 185 different components. And I don't know right now how many there is. Like, I can't remember. I can't remember right now. And then when I say 185, I'm talking about 185 unique components, not 185 like individual like resistors. Because we might have 100 resistors of one value. That's one of those components, right? It's not. So 185 different components, 185 different sources. That's sourcing. And if you don't have a crew of people working for you, which I don't right now, within a year or so, I'm hoping that we will have employees that help with these things. But right now we don't. So I'm the one who's figuring that out. I've got to figure out the sources. I've got to research the manufacturers of the components, and then I've got to design and source the raw materials into custom components, as like Ponoko provided wonderful acrylic panels in 2020. They were my source of that custom component. But I've got to deal with like the business, selling, figuring out the price of things, finding who's going to buy them, who's going to be the distributor if there is a distributor. How do we get the how do we get the product from one part of the world to another, like shipping? Are we going to ship directly from the place of assembly, or are we going to ship it to our own warehouse, and then are we going to deliver it? Are we delivering it ourselves, or are we hiring a company like FedEx or DHL or whatever to deliver? And then I didn't mention patents again. I'm off on a whole other thing. Well, it's a lot, right? It's a lot, and we have a lot of things on our shoulders. But when it comes down to it, we have to captain our own ship. We have to usher our devices into the world. And at the same time, we have to be the person where the buck stops. I don't know if the phrase "buck stops here" is internationally known, so I can't say if anyone listening to this understands. But what it basically means is that there is no other person who has the responsibility of making sure something is actually done than the person who is trying to make it happen. And, you as an entrepreneur, whether you be young or old, whether you be male or female, whatever race you are, what religion, what background, who knows who you are. You could be anybody in the world. Like, I can meet a 15-year-old who's in the same position as me to an extent, trying to make things happen because, inspiration strikes, drive strikes, you use your motivation and you move forward. Well, you have a lot of things on your shoulders. You got to do them all. But in general, you're the one who has to make it happen. So don't try to pretend that the responsibility falls somewhere else, because it doesn't. It falls on you. So there you go. You're the one. So you have help. You can have help. Like, you can hire an attorney and help you with your patent. You can design your panels and order them on Ponoko's website, but you are the one designing those panels, and you're the one paying for them. Ponoko is providing you a platform, but they're not doing it for you. They're doing a certain part of it for you, and you're paying for it, whether you're paying for it with money or favors, or your good charisma.
Well, I think one thing I'd love to just drop down as a sort of a comment that my granddad made, which I always loved this thing he said, and he always said, the only thing that money can buy is somebody else's time, which is why and I've always liked that phrase, and I think it does apply quite well here, especially like you say with the finding an attorney, you're paying for his time to do everything for you, because you can't be doing it yourself. If you're designing something, you're spending your own time, and I think that I think this whole podcast has really sort of covered the idea of responsibility and how you delegate that and finding the right skills to do something. But just before we end this podcast, I've got one more question for you that I think would be great for the audience, which is, if people listening to this podcast, they want to get involved with the solutions that you've developed at Muse Ovations, what would you recommend that they do?
Well, if you're interested in our products, you can always go to our website, Muse Ovations. It's MUSE Ovations, OVATIONS.com. I am always working, but I haven't released any newsletters recently. However, you can sign up for the newsletter there. You can go and connect with us on our Connect form. And I read all those emails, so if you have any interest in working with us, even if you want to just ask questions to me about some part of this whole thing, I mean, there's a lot I haven't talked about, and, I'm not expecting this podcast to cover everything. How can it, right? But if you have questions for me, or if you're interested in our products, or if you want to just, I don't know, have a conversation about the challenges, and don't even want to talk to me, ask me questions. If you just want to talk to me about it, I would love to talk, because, the community of people who are going through what I've gone through and what I am going through now is fairly small. I mean, in the grand scheme of things, it's a lot of people out there, yeah. But when it compared to the population of Earth, it's very small. And when you meet somebody who has really gone through it or going through it, like there is a brotherhood or sisterhood or, you know, community. There's a real community. I want to help other people succeed in this. I really, really do. And I will help you if you ask me for it. If what you're asking for is ridiculous, you know, I might say, oh, I'm sorry. But like when it comes to advice or I don't know, commiseration, you know, feel free to reach out because I think it's a valuable thing to do. Making new products that are a representation of, you know, genuine innovation is magic, and it's real magic that we as humans can make. We don't need a magic wand. All we need is our minds and our motivation, and then we can make it, you know.
Fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. Well, all I can say is thank you ever so much for taking the time to be here today.
You are very welcome, Robin, and say hi to Derek and all the rest of the Ponoko team for me.
Fantastic. Thank you ever so much.